And I'm very excited. We have Andrew here who is going to do a learning module for us. So Andrew, welcome. Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
So before we dive in, I know we have a packed agenda today, but I would just like to maybe just go around and have everybody just say one thing from this week that they were excited about. Lauren, you did this last week for our meeting, and I just thought it set a really nice tone. So I'd like to take from your hosting last meeting and maybe do it again here. So I'm happy to start. So one thing I'm very excited about this week is what Andrew was just mentioning. We have breathable air in Portland again. So it's really nice to be able to go outside and just spend some time in the sun. And Matthew, can I ask you to go next and then pick a person?
Sure. I don't know if this is was that from this past week or the coming week or both?
You can do either. Yeah. If you're looking forward to something next week, I think that's fine too.
Yeah, either way, mine applies to both. I got an interview for Wednesday for a full-time job up in Bend, Oregon. So I've been trying to get there for a couple of years now. I was really close when I was in Portland, and then I came back to California. So not getting my hopes up, but also preparing and just doing what I can. So yeah, looking forward to that and hoping to calm my nerves as I go into it. But yeah. That'll be fun. Let's go with Tiana.
I'm excited that I'm quitting my job.
Oh, yeah. Tell us more.
I kind of talked about this on the chat, but I was offered contract work. It's still in the works of happening. I'm talking to my connection, which is like my boyfriend's friend from Ohio. Randomly was like, hey, I might have work for you. And it's nothing crazy. It's like WordPress stuff, but it's still a good stepping stone. And so I put in my 2 weeks and I feel great about it, even though I'm going to be poor for a while.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Oh, I'll send it to Quinn.
Yeah, this past week, and not too eventful, but I did manage to go to Central Park. I don't know if anybody knows this, but like towards like the top, like the hundreds area, there are like a lot of like nice walkable garden paths. So it was really nice to go there, and like it's very relaxing. Like you can like sit. It like you've seen like Game of Thrones, like whenever they walk through a maze or whenever they walk through like a garden, it's kind of like that. So I don't know, it's like very nice and calming. So I like that. I'll pass it to Lauren Y.
I am excited because my job told me they're offering me a full-time job next week. So yeah, hopefully that the contract and everything goes well, but finally.
Oh, congratulations, Lauren. That's awesome.
Thank you. Kat.
Hey, I'm excited. My partner and I are looking for a bigger apartment because we live in a 1+10. So we found one, I think. So we're just waiting to hear back on that. So that's really exciting. And I haven't received a rejection on a job that I applied for yet. So that's also very exciting because it doesn't mean that I was like automatically eliminated. I'll pass it to you, Lauren B.
Lauren B, let's see. My oldest son turns 15 this week, and he just started high school, and this past weekend was really he was really nervous about his classes and the workload and stuff. But the week went great, and so I'm really glad for him, and I can't believe he's 15. That's pretty awesome. Andrew.
Yeah, for me, a couple things from the last week. So when we had all the fires and stuff, I had to evacuate my dad out of his house. So he lived with us for 5 nights or something. So I was able to take him back to his house, which was great. I went down there yesterday. We went for a walk. He had just moved into the house like a week earlier and stuff. So it was really good that nothing bad happened actually in the area, and he's able to go back. And then the other big thing for me in the last few days is just kind of admitting and getting confirmed the October cohort. So we have 4 teams that are going to run starting October 4th. 2 in North America, one is the Latin America team. It's going to be run in Spanish. And then we have people in Europe and Africa who are going to, and mentors over in Europe who are going to do one over in those time zones. So it's going to be a lot going on, but we're really excited. It's going to be a ton of fun. So everyone's like starting to join Slack and like meet each other and stuff. So it's like we're kind of building up to that next cohort kicking off. So super fun.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Congrats, Andrew. That's going to be really exciting to just have cohorts kind of coordinated across the world like that.
Yeah, for sure. And in different languages too. It's so fun to like be in the TCL-14 channel where it's all in Spanish, and I'm like hitting Google Translate because I don't really speak Spanish very well. And but it's just, you know, there's just so much just fun and enthusiasm. So it's good.
Right, awesome. Right, thank you, everybody. So next up we have demos, which I believe, Lauren, can I turn it over to you for demos? Is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
Awesome.
Okay, I am super excited to see what you all came up with. Yeah, take it away. Take it away, TCL-10.
Can I actually just ask a really quick question, unrelated? What do people do for the people that are in the Spanish cohort? What does their code look like? Can they do React are the keywords all still in English?
Yep, it's a great question. So so Alejandro, he works for me at Zapier, and he lives in Colombia, South America, and he's already talking to the team about, he's going to be mentoring them. He's talking to that team about what things are going to be in English, what things are going to be in Spanish, because the thing that really would change somebody's lives down there is if they could get a job with either an American company or like a UK company or something, you know, kind of work on a different economy than their local economy. So they're going to do all the conversational stuff in Spanish, but all the coding and all the sort of written stuff like PRs and comments and all that stuff, he's talking about doing all that in English. So yeah, so then the actual, you know, the framework doesn't change. The framework itself is not localized like that. So yeah, all the, you know, component names and all that stuff has to be in English anyway. So and he's pushing them to maybe do some conversation in English. It's like, it's kind of a safe place to practice your English. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Good question.
All right, demos. We're ready.
I'm gonna go first. Yeah, so let me just pull up the issue really quickly and share my screen. Oh, it says the host is disabled screen sharing.
Oh, Matthew, can you, I think you go in security too.
Yeah, sorry. That's the first time I hadn't changed it before everyone joined. It should be now for you.
You know what, I'm gonna just preface this. So for Andrew, for the last 2 weeks, our cohort was a little bit ahead on their issues. So we kind of set them loose for this week and next week to plan things out themselves and divide up the work how they wanted rather than just following the issues, because really what they all had left was just styling. So this week was really an experiment in like how they might go about planning and organizing their work in a different kind of way.
I love that. It's like a little bit of self-organization. I saw that happening in the channel and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And you know, not every group would maybe get to that point, but the fact that you're able to do that is really fun.
Cool. Okay, sorry, Quinn. Thank you.
So yeah, so this week we kind of broke apart like components in specific pages and decided to work on them. So I was tasked with doing the field set, and so I converted the field set to Material UI's implementation of like what a field set might look like. So go to the React app. If I click each of these, I should be able to submit an item, just like I could before, and it should show up, you know, no issues, just primarily styling. So yeah, I don't know. Should I show it? Is this important? I guess I can just show quickly. Yeah. Yeah. So Apple was just submitted today. The frequency is soon. Yeah. So that was the bulk of the work. I go to the code really quickly and show that. Yeah, that was instead of like adding the item. Yeah, so I basically use these form control label components, which control the radio. Radio group controls the entire set of radio buttons, and then be able to set in a legend as form control and form label. Typography became an important thing too, just to like make sure that all the text is consistent. I remember Lauren had mentioned that before we had started working on Lauren, and also what else? And that's the bulk of it. Yeah, that's most of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
Cool. I think it's a real testament to the rest of the code that everybody wrote coming up to this week, that everything just kind of worked seamlessly. Did you run into any issues with functionality or anything?
Nothing with functionality that I guess was like due for this PR, but I did see some things that kind of pushed me to like, I was kind of coming up on the end and had this PR, so there are things that I definitely want to fix, like in, let me see if I can pull it up really quickly. In the Figma, it looks a little bit more polished, and like I wasn't so sure how to get the I saw like the implementation for like outline on text fields, but I'm not entirely sure how to put that on the radio group. I tried placing it a couple places, but I think that I might have to keep trying to reach out, ask somebody else in the group, our group about it. And then also, I would like to be able to click the entire item or element and be able to set which type it is. Currently,
I see.
Right now, yeah, if you try and click any of these, you don't actually set it. You'll set it if you click in the same, I guess. I believe they're grouped together, so you can do that with the label and it'll work. But yeah, so I want to make those changes.
One thing that's kind of nice about it, I don't know if you noticed, but you can like arrow up and down between soon and kind of soon and not soon. So keyboard functionality is really nice with it. Cool.
Cool. Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Quinn. Any other questions or comments for Quinn?
I took a screenshot when you were showing the Figma, because I didn't know that y'all were doing that. That's awesome to have sort of, like the AC and like sort of like my crappy design from like a year and a half ago. And like where you want to get to. That's really cool to see.
Yeah, Kat's been really on that. She has like it all together. Yeah.
Nice.
Nice. And let's see, do you all have planned who wants to go next? Do you have planned who wants to go next? Actually, could we have Kat go next? Would you like to show the Figma just so we have context for what comes next?
Yeah, totally. I figured that made probably the most sense after Quinn's presentation.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. Amazing. So for this week, I was feeling a little like sick, so mostly focused on just getting like a design system in so that we could base things off of it and have like a really consistent vision, I guess. So the first thing that I did was created like a design system based on this like material like UI design kit that I found in Figma community. So it's got all of the like components, all of these like little stickers that are built into Material UI, along with like the color themes as well, so that we've got this all in here and we can sort of just like grab and know that these are the things that we would have access to once we are like going through like Material UI, which is again something I'm not super comfortable with. So this really helped me as well, just because I was able to see what we have access to, which was awesome, along with some more of like the icons as well that weren't included in the like kit. So from there, we grabbed all of the design AC to sort of get a feel for what we were looking at. And we also like referenced it with, I need to buy XYZ, or I think that's what it was, to sort of see how it flowed. Obviously it had a very like mobile first design perspective, just because it does stretch quite a bit. So we thought that, again, designing mobile first was probably something that would make the most sense for us. And then, adding a wrapper at some point. But initially designing for like a mobile user, just because that's also like the primary user of this app. And from there, yeah, just dragging and dropping and sort of getting the components in here to reflect what we were looking for. While we were doing that, I also found that like, you know, soon, kind of soon and not soon was like a little ambiguous. So I thought that maybe adding this additional like explainer text would help. So we wouldn't have to have like a whole page of explanations about like what these mean. And we can also color code them to make sure that they correspond with the shopping list items as well. And then again, like trying to add like the modal to see how that worked and how it would interact and if it would be something that made sense. And then the shopping list. Also exploring ideas like potentially adding a little branding with like a logo or something, adding a way to like share your list with the share token without having it like actively displayed the whole time, and then the ability to leave your list, hopefully, if we do get to that like stretch goal, so that users can have access to multiple lists per device, which was not something that we had access to before. But again, these are all just like sort of ideas, which is really fun for us to sort of play in it. Also, like the frames generally don't have these like top or bottom bars in, so you're not getting like the full picture of what your design would look like if it was like 100 VH. So adding these in like really helps sort of see what we're working with and like what the full area is going to be. So we're not sort of making a more stretched design and then finding it compact once the user's in there. Yeah, so does anyone have any questions?
This is amazing. And if you're whatever job you're applying for, they should just hire you.
Yeah. Thank you. I cheated a little bit. My partner is like a product designer. So like when I saw him like playing around in this, I was like, I need to know some of these things because it'll be so helpful for me instead of like trying to like draw a wireframe like on a piece of paper or using like some sort of goofy like PDF, like Adobe kind of thing or like preview. Like this is a great way that like really, really translates well.
Yeah, Figma is amazing. We use it at work too. And it's a really great tool, yeah.
Very cool. I'm wondering, is this the color scheme that you're going for at that end, or is it just sort of what's built in?
Yeah, this was the default like primary color scheme. And we added like I added a couple of values in there to sort of show the difference, but like we haven't really spoken about like branding or color stories that we'd like to implement. But I figured that was like more of a last minute thing because Lauren had mentioned that we can just like add a theme page at some point to sort of dictate these colors.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. Other questions? Awesome. Yay. So cool. Thank you, Kat. Let's see who would like to go next.
I can go.
Cool. Thanks, Tim.
Let's see. All right, so I actually recently updated this and I'll show it in the code and then I'll talk about pushing it so I don't mess that up again. I did this is a little annoying. I want that gone. I did the bottom navigation tabs and I just brought in material UI. There's a couple things I'd like to change and update. Like I'd really like to see a divider here. It has the tab set up so you have different little bar down here that moves around. But I'd like a little bit more acknowledgement and I'd like to change that. I haven't had the most productive week. My brain's been kind of mush since vacation apparently. So I did this, proud of that. And we can go to the code and I can walk through that a bit. Let's stop sharing and go to the other screen. All right, so this is what I recently just added, the footer positioning, because before it was like sitting below the screen, and I know we're gonna do it like mobile, so it looks better on mobile anyways, but when it's on desktop, you have to like scroll down a little before you see it. So I just found this quickly and threw it in there, and it looks so much better already. And then my code, I brought in, you know, all the material UI stuff. I can probably put that in a nice, beautiful list like, oh my God, I'm blanking on her name. Lauren did. And just brought in simple tabs, nothing crazy. Updated my area labels so things make more sense. And I brought in the icons so we look a little bit more like the wireframe we had. And yeah, that's really about it. And I just want to like update some things with colors and make it more dynamic. So that's all.
Nice. How did you like working with Material UI?
I have used Material UI in the past, so I already felt pretty comfortable with it. When Lauren was going through it with us, she showed me that I had so much more to learn still, but I definitely built my solo project in school with it, so it's pretty easy.
Yeah, I haven't worked with Material UI myself, but I was really impressed with the API. I found it really easy to read and just so flexible. And I really liked what I saw. That was pretty neat.
Love seeing position absolute. I think a lot of web developers these days seem to kind of shy away from using positioning for things like this, and in favor of grid and stuff, which actually kind of makes sense. But yeah, so having that at the bottom, and it's going to always take up that 50 pixels. But I don't know if you've run into, or I didn't actually kind of see how the list itself is positioned. So, you know, if the list were just sort of the rest of the page, like it's going to run behind that element, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know if I even saw how that was set up either. I was just working around it.
Yeah.
I remember that Quinn a while ago had set it up so that the list is only a certain height and that container scrolls.
Oh,
so
good.
that
Okay. That's what I was
because
going to
they
say.
had kind of already run into that issue previously, like if you had too many items in your list that it went like underneath the nav bar. So I think they've worked their way around that.
Nice. Good job.
I'd also just like to say to like the grid thing, like I literally just pulled this from a website right now, and I would say it's pure ignorance and naivety that I have any idea what I'm doing here with the positioning. I was like, that looks like it works. Let's try it.
Yeah, that's pragmatic. I love it.
Yep. Cool. Any other questions? Awesome. All right. Nice job, Tiana. Lauren, why?
Okay, this week I worked on the shopping list. It's funny because it took so long to make the check marks last time and then we deleted everything. But in addition to stylizing these so they looked like individual little cards, I had done this before. I think I saw Kat's info icon. So if we prefer to have that info icon, we can do that. But yeah, so I updated this and also added the token up here so that hopefully it's easier to see which list you're on and then eventually to share it. And then in the code, so instead of using the default check marks, the check areas, I added our custom circular ones. And then I had seen an example that did a green check mark. It basically uses a wrapper to infuse the green attribute. So I created 4 of them with the active, soon, kind of soon, not soon, and inactive colors. And then let's see. Sorry, this is a pretty big component. Okay, so then up here, which is something that we did last time, we added this time class attribute depending on how we were going to sort, which helped us sort them. So based on that, I then chose the checkbox component that I wanted to use for the color. And then down here, I did use grids. Where the actual control is. So this is what was pointing at a check mark. And then I actually sent it to the function with the result and the time. So then it could use that, the time is something that we found up here, basically the most recent purchase date. But that's what I sent to this function to use a switch statement in order to return whichever checkmark component we wanted for that. And finally, yeah, just for the, in order to get the background, I wrapped it in a paper component. And to instead of having the delete and details buttons with the words, I changed it to icons here. So just put them in icon buttons instead. And Lauren B thankfully caught I updated this based on her suggestions, which is, it's much more, it makes much more sense to screen readers this way. So I think that's basically it. Are there any questions?
That's really cool. What is the styling thing that allows you to reference, like gray 400 or whatever? Is that a?
So depending on my understanding is that for Material UI they have make styles and with styles, which are depends on if
it's part of Material UI. Okay.
Yeah, functional or class components.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Cool. All right. I haven't seen that before. It's neat.
Oh, do you want to show the theme that you started?
Oh, sure.
I thought that was really neat too.
So I didn't really put anything in there. I had used this on something else. And I left this commented out in case we want to switch the type of font we want for the whole thing. But yeah, because if we do wrap our text and typography components, then this will adjust all of them. It'll be a global thing. And then we can adjust anything. So buttons, I don't remember which one they pull from, but they pull from as a default the primary or secondary in your theme. So if we update this to purple or something, the app bar will be purple, and then the buttons will reflect one of these two things. And it's also really easy. Once we set these up, we can say in the buttons, we can say color equals primary or secondary, and it will very quickly adjust to our color scheme. And the paper background, so which is just slightly gray, is this right here, I believe. And then otherwise, other backgrounds default to this. So yeah, we can feel free to play around with that if you guys want to test what fonts are. And the only other thing for the font is we'll have to import it in index.html, but that we can look at like all the Google fonts. It's really cool. I think right now the default is Roboto.
And then that kind of, there's like a theme provider or something maybe that wraps the whole app. Is that where that theme gets injected?
Yeah, sorry for the.
Sorry.
So yes, in index, yes, this is it. In index.js, what we do is we wrap it with a theme provider here, and this baseline allows us to have a global background also if we want. So I don't know if we need this or not, but that's just there for us to test with. And then so in the assets, it's kind of like, this part is kind of like Redux where we're pulling in, we're setting the store, now we're telling it where the theme is. And yeah, here it's a imported function from Material UI in order to create the theme. So before I start sharing, any questions here?
This is awesome, Lauren. Thank you for the detailed breakdown. I love to conditionally returning the stylings with the switch statement the way you did. I thought that looked really, really nice. So props to structuring it that way. All right.
Other questions? That was amazing. Super exciting, everyone. All right, Andrew. I think you're up.
All right, I'm up. All right, okay, there we go. All right, gonna share on the screen. So we are going to talk about accessibility. So came up a little bit in the demos, but yeah, I'm curious for y'all. Have you, like, how much do you? I mean, you clearly know something about accessibility. You've heard of it. You're aware of things like screen readers and stuff. Is that something that was talked about in your boot camps, or that you sort of came across in your own studying and things, that people have some understanding of it or experience with it?
I honestly feel like my boot camp, which was, over a year ago, like hardly touched on it. And it's something that like interests me in general, like all accessibility does. But yeah, I was like a little bummed that it didn't go into that, but I guess I'm not surprised because of how much they're condensing in. So it'd be little things like alt tags for images is like the only accessibility stuff we did.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's more to it, obviously. we'll talk about, but yeah, I think that's a pretty common experience. Anybody else?
I mean, I would say like through just like that, I was saying like through boot camp didn't really get much training, but also I mean I don't know, I guess in their minds like it's like they're trying to make sure that we like know at least the basics, and like they want to. I know it's not an excuse at all, but like I see what they're like saying in terms of like we want to make sure you like your money gets spent wisely learning this stuff, but yes, we only cover that, and then I would say like over like a couple like past 2 years I'd say just like there's a huge accessibility community on Twitter, and it's like awesome to see just like how much like, I learned so much just by like scrolling through and seeing what everybody's talking about. So
yeah, nice. Yeah, and we actually now we have a couple of mentors who are probably some of the people you see on Twitter. I mean, EJ, Mason, and Olu in the UK. They're both really big in the accessibility community, and so this is something that's been important to me for a long time. I was first sort of aware of accessibility in 2000, literally 20 years ago. As like when I first became aware of it, and so I've tried to make it an emphasis, one of several things that we try to emphasize here at Collab Lab, but I think we're gonna do that even more in the future with EJ and Olu around. So anyway, I'm excited to talk to you about it. So one thing this is like a super kind of, I don't know, like, you've probably seen this hashtag, hashtag A11Y. It's not L's, those aren't L's, they're ones. So it's A11Y. And all that means is that there are 11 characters between the A and the Y in the word accessibility. So it's when you see that somebody's not saying they're an ally or something like that, it's actually literally just short for the word accessibility. So we can, it's a nice shorthand because I always misspell it when I try to spell the whole thing. So anyway, so what is accessibility? So accessibility, this is sort of the Wikipedia definition is the inclusive practice of ensuring there are no barriers that prevent interaction with or access to websites on the World Wide Web, which is kind of an old way of talking about the web, but by people with physical disabilities, which is what we sort of think of usually, situational disabilities, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute, and socioeconomic restrictions on bandwidth and speed. So, it's more than blind people using a screen reader or low vision people using a screen reader. Like there are times when you might also be in that boat, and there are people who don't necessarily have a physical disability, but who they're maybe in a rural area, or they don't have the money for a fast connection or something. So the idea is that when sites are designed with accessibility in mind, all users have equal access to information and functionality. So it may not be the exact same experience. You can imagine, you have a page with a big a chart with a bunch of information on it that's very visual. If you have a text description of it that gives you all the same information, it's not necessarily the same experience, but it is, you do have access to all the information. So the World Wide Web Consortium, the W3C, they have a working group dedicated to accessibility. They have standards that they publish about it. In the United States, Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act requires government agencies to make websites accessible to people with disabilities. That is now becoming sort of, the courts are recognizing that that's actually also something that applies to private businesses. So let's see, I have the Domino's website up here. It's not because I'm going to be ordering a pizza. It's because they recently got sued because their website wasn't accessible. And so I'm going to do a little demo of a tool here in a bit, and we're going to use their website and see how they did. But yeah, these kind of standards and laws and things are, the courts are starting to see that like private businesses should make their websites accessible as well. So that's sort of a little bit about what it is. The other side of what it is sort of what are these tools that people use to, how do people with disabilities or situational disabilities or socioeconomic restrictions, how do they access the web? So some people with disabilities access websites using what are called assistive technologies. So screen readers is one, which I think we're pretty familiar with. That's software that will read the web page to the person. Screen magnifiers, so just being able to blow up either parts of the screen or the whole screen. Speech input, Siri and some of those kinds of things are pretty common now, but back in the day there was a what was it called, Dragon something or other, which you could actually just dictate to your computer. Assistive keyboards. There are simplified keyboards with big buttons for people with motor control issues. There are literally joysticks. Some people will access the web by moving a joystick around with their chin. So a quadriplegic might access your website using just a joystick. So and then Braille displays too. So these are little machines that change the Braille bumps under your fingertips to read the page to you. So there are all kinds of ways that people might come to your stuff and try to experience the things you're building. And once you realize all that, it's like, oh, I better do whatever it takes to kind of make all this stuff accessible. I can't just throw a canvas tag on there and expect people to kind of be able to experience what I'm building. Popular screen readers include NVDA and JAWS on Windows. So NVDA is free software. JAWS is pretty pricey, but it's also very good. And these are screen readers not just for the web, but they're for the entire computer as well. And VoiceOver comes built in on the Mac. NVDA and JAWS and VoiceOver use sort of two different paradigms for how they organize the information on a web page. And I bring that up only because a lot of times, a lot of developers are on Macs and they'll say, oh, I checked it with VoiceOver and it seems pretty good. And it's like, it's fine, but it's also not, like, it's better than not doing that for sure. And you should probably get familiar with whatever tool, whichever platform you're on, and have a screen reader that you do kind of run through your page with. But it's not sufficient to really deliver a really good experience, but it is better than not doing that. And something we'll talk about a little bit more is just that with accessibility in general, you do as much as you can given sort of the constraints that you're under. There's always more that you could do to make a really, really great experience for people with disabilities or assistive technologies. But making an effort, doing something is better than not doing anything in general. So all that, yeah. So why do we do this? At a high level, it's the right thing to do to provide equitable access to information. Like I was saying about dominoes and stuff, you may be legally obligated to make your website accessible. No one's probably going to sue you over your personal website, but if you work for a corporation of any size, you probably do have some legal obligation to do that. A lot of people access websites with assistive technology. So more people in the United States do this than everybody who lives in Canada. It's a big number of people.
Wow.
Yeah, so some say 20% of website visitors have some sort of disability, and that includes like people as they get older, their eyes start to degenerate and stuff. So they're bumping font sizes up and that kind of thing. That's part of it too. So a lot of people will benefit from you making an effort in the area of accessibility. So the kind of cool thing is that, like, a cool thing in the sense of, like, if you are at a company and you're trying to sell accessibility to your designer or product manager, or trying to make room to do a little bit of this type of work, making your pages accessible for people with disabilities makes them more accessible for everyone. And this is the common way that we've talked about this for a long time, is like the curb cut analogy. So sidewalks didn't used to have the little curb cuts at the corners, and they put those in for people with wheelchairs, but now everybody uses them. If you're a mom pushing a stroller or a dad pushing a stroller, if you have a shopping cart, like you're on a bicycle, or you just don't want to have to step up to step, like everybody uses the curb cuts now, but they were originally put in for people in wheelchairs. So same kind of thing applies to the web. If you like something we'll talk about again later. I feel like I'm spoiling all the points that I want to make, but is that if you make your page accessible via keyboard, if you can keyboard around the entire page, that's a really good start to like a screen reader will be able to get to all the information. But it also helps your power users. You know, if somebody who's they're really familiar with the website and they want to kind of fly through on the keyboard, the fact that you took the time to make it all keyboard accessible is going to help them as well. So you know, it's kind of a win-win. So this shows a little bit about some of those situational disabilities. So Microsoft in the last few years has done some really amazing work in the area of accessibility, not just on the web, but in computing generally. And they came up with this way to sort of communicate that, you know, there are people who have sort of permanent disabilities. So, you know, a blind person, you know, that's sort of their world all the time. Somebody who has cataracts, maybe they, you know, or, you know, some kind of, I mean, you could have an eye infection or something that kind of makes it so you can't see very well for a limited amount of time. A distracted driver, so a situational kind of thing where, you know, your focus is somewhere else, so you don't see something. I mean, these are all different categories of that same sense being degraded in some way, right? And that applies to a bunch of different senses. So, you know, this kind of tells you, like, if you I don't know, like, just, I don't know, for me, it gives me a lot more empathy to how you know, I am in these situations sometimes, and like there might be a time when I only have, you know, I'm right. This is a terrible example. I'm riding my bike and I need to check Google Maps. I'm doing it with one hand, right? So so anyway, we're all in situations where you know, we would benefit from somebody having made their website a little bit more accessible. So hopefully I've convinced you all that it's important. Now, how do we do this? So this isn't the exhaustive list of this, but these are all a good start if you kind of take care of these things. So the first thing is to use valid semantic HTML. And how familiar are you all with semantic HTML, what that means? Is that something that you all have talked about before, or that you've had experience with in the past? Yeah, cats, give me a thumbs up. Some nods. Oh no, Tiana. Okay, so HTML, you know, it's a way of structuring content, right? You guys say something?
Oh, I guess I mean, like, what you mean by semantic HTML.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the semantics, so HTML, like, it's a way of structuring information, but some of the tags actually convey meaning in terms of the structure. So like a heading is different than a div, right? A div is just this generic container. An H1 means this is, if this were an outline, this would be the top, you know, the very top item on the outline. You know, lists that's another semantic set of tags that give you, you know, that tell you that this is a set of things that are all related. You know,
Gotcha.
a figure element, image element. Yeah, they're different tags that actually have, and there's even ones that are more specific. So there's a cite, CITE element for citations. There's an address element. You know, there are some things that are like the original vision of this stuff. And actually, HTML comes from something called SGML, which preceded it, which is just which is all based on XML, right? Which is like these tagged ways of using tags to structure information. And HTML went part of the way towards making that semantic, but didn't go all the way. And you know, then once it got, like, they had all this momentum, it was kind of too late to make it completely semantic. Because you also it's really hard to anticipate every use case. So anyway, but now we have, you know, header, main, footer as ways to break up the page, nav elements, those kinds of things. So wherever you can, you should use the most semantic tag you can. And I'm actually going to skip ahead to number 3 because it's related, where you use ARIA attributes if necessary, but as the little call out on the right hand side here says, the best ARIA is no ARIA at all. So what that means is, you know, if you can find a semantic tag for something, use it. But if you find yourself in a situation where there's no good semantic tag or something, then fall back to using ARIA labels to provide a little bit of extra context or meaning for the user. Does that all make sense? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I noticed in the demos, y'all, you were adding some ARIA information, and in that case, like you're using Material UI, and you're a little bit at the mercy of the framework. You don't get to choose what tags Material UI is providing. So if they recommend that you put an ARIA label in there, it's probably because they found that there was no good semantic tag for the thing that they're doing. So they're augmenting with ARIA. But if you're writing the tags, sort of if you're writing the HTML yourself directly, then always try to find semantic tags when you can. Okay, so the other thing is always include alt attributes on your images. And so, but alt attributes don't always have to have anything in them. Okay, so if you're on a screen reader and you get to an image element and there's no alt attribute, the screen reader is literally going to say image. And as a screen reader, you're going to be like, okay, there's an image here. Am I missing something important? I don't know. If the alt attribute is empty, the screen reader will skip over it. And if the alt attribute has text in it, it'll read the text, image, and then read the text that's in the alt attribute. So the reason this is important is that some images in a web page are decorative, and they don't necessarily need to be, every image doesn't have to be read out. It actually creates a lot of noise for someone on a screen reader to have icon, flower, and like these kinds of things read out to the person if it's purely decorative. So so you can actually leave these out in some cases, or have the alt attribute, just have it be empty. But if you are trying to convey information, if it's a header graphic or something and it says something, you should have that text in the alt attribute. We talked about this a little bit before, but make sure all your content is reachable via keyboard. So a little story about that is at Zapier a little over a year ago, Alejandro, who's one of the mentors, we had built this page, and we contracted with this company, who I'll talk about later, I keep doing that, called Fable Tech Labs, to actually have an experienced screen reader user. He's a blind man named Sam, lives in Toronto, and he had him go through the page and actually use the screen reader. We actually walked through with him, trying to kind of just make sure our page was accessible. And he got to a certain point and kind of skipped over something, and we were like, oh, there's something there. He's like, I can't get to it. He's tried everything, every trick he knew, and he's been using screen readers forever. And he's like, I can't get to it. It's like, it just basically doesn't exist to me. We're like, oh, that's a problem. So like we went back, we actually replaced it with a more semantic tag, which was a big win. So but yeah, if you can't get to it via keyboard, for a screen reader, it might as well not even be there. So that's step one, is to make sure you can get to everything with a keyboard. Step two, that's related, is making sure all the content and tab ordering makes sense. So CSS allows you to move stuff around all over the page and whatever, but to a screen reader, it's literally reading the HTML. So it's it's going to go through in a very linear fashion. So organizing the page as if it were if it was read through linearly from top to bottom, making sure that it makes sense in that like delivered that way is how you kind of make that content side of it make sense. The tab ordering has to do with the content, so links and headers and stuff, but also has to do with form elements. So another case where you might style something sort of out of order relative to the HTML, it's best not to get into designating the tab ordering manually, because as soon as you make a change, you have to go back and try to reorder things, all those kinds of things. But there may be cases where you do want to do that. It is possible to set a tab index on elements and kind of do that manually, but it's opening a can of worms to do it. So for the most part, just making sure your HTML is in the order that makes sense is kind of the way to go with that one. All right, so color contrast and just using only color to signify state. So these things are important for people who might have some form of color blindness or low vision too sometimes. So there are tools that will tell you whether a combination of two colors, a text in one color and background in another color, whether or not that's sufficient contrast. That's like something you can programmatically check. and then using only color to signify state. So if you had, you had 3 circle icons that are, red, yellow, and green with no other information, that works fine for someone who's not colorblind, who's sighted and stuff. But if, if you are colorblind or something, that's not going to mean much. It's going to be 3 shades of gray, and you're not going to know which one's which. So whenever you have that kind of situation, having something else visual that signifies what the things mean, and also, I mean, if that's an image, then making sure you have some either alt text or ARIA information or something that signifies state as well is helpful. So that's some really nuts and boltsy kinds of stuff about how. How much of that stuff is familiar to you? We've heard of ARIA attributes. We talked about it in the demo. We talked about alt attributes in the demo, I think. Is there new stuff to folks from this?
If you have, let's say you have an image of like a poster or some kind of event coming up, what do you, and let's say that it wasn't in text underneath the details, would you put that all in your alt?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are probably a few ways you could handle that. I don't know if this is still valid. There used to be a long desk attribute, like short for long description, and you could put, you could put the whole text of the poster in that long description, and user agents would kind of know what to do with it. But you could also probably do something where you have another element that contains the text that's somehow visually hidden or something that still gets read by a screen reader. I'm not sure what the best solve is for that, but does anybody else have experience with that?
I didn't know about the long desk, but I have in the past used something that's visually hidden, but it contains the information that you need that's reachable. Like it's reachable by a screen reader.
How did you make it not visible? Is it literally like visibility hidden or something, or opacity 0? Like
it depends. I think sometimes it's like off the screen.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like margin negative gazillion to the left or something, or but otherwise like using visibility hidden or SR only or something like that. Screen reader only.
Yeah, that moving stuff off the screen is kind of a technique from the old days where you would have an image in your headline. You'd want before web fonts and stuff, you'd want this kind of stylized image for a headline or a header or something, but you'd have the text. It's like, say it was an H1 tag, and you'd have the text in the element, and you would do text indent -9999 pixels, and throw it way off the screen, and then have a background image in the like across the actual element. Google search now penalizes sites for doing that technique. So that's a good question, Lauren. So maybe somebody could do some little research on that, quick Google on that, and see if there's a really good technique for that we could all use. I'd love to know. All right. So another level of the how is sort of how do you go about identifying accessibility issues that you might need to fix. So there are automated tools. So Axe is a good one. It's built into Lighthouse, which is built into Chrome. So it's a good start, but it only finds about 30% of the issues. So it's limited by the fact that it does static analysis of the HTML, which means it can find that you didn't have an alt attribute in an image, but what it can't do is tell you what the alt attribute should say, right? If there's an image there, computers aren't yet smart enough to actually fill in that alt text for you. So someday maybe, but anyway, and there are other classes of things that it can't really tell, but it can do things like it can look at color contrast, and it can look at anything that's sort of HTML related, and it could tell you maybe if you're using an ARIA label incorrectly or something like that. So it's a good start, and you should do it because you can automate it and just get reports that are maybe generated through your like a CI/CD process or something. But it's not quite sufficient. So the next thing you can do is you could do a guided audit, a self-audit, using a tool such as Accessibility Insights. So we're going to talk about that I'm going to demo that in a second. But accessibility insights is great. It'll step you right through a bunch of concerns around accessibility. And if you were to go through all those and try to fix all the things that it recommends fixing, your site would be pretty accessible. Would be in pretty good shape. But the ultimate thing is to actually have accessibility testers, look at your page, like people who they use these assistive technologies daily, super familiar with how the tools work, but also they have a good sample set. They use the web all the time, so they kind of know what patterns work and what don't, like what a really good experience is like. So Fable Tech Labs is a company that I know. They're actually out of Toronto, and they're amazing and like super nice people as well. And I think there are a couple others that have kind of popped up that are similar, but some companies will even have just some expert people internally who that's kind of their thing, is to do this kind of testing as well. All right, so demo time. Gonna put dominoes under the microscope here. So, but with the purpose of showing you how Accessibility Insights works. So, Accessibility Insights, it's a Chrome extension and a Microsoft Edge extension that it's free. You can go and install it, and it has these sort of three options. So FastPass, it'll just sort of just do a couple of simple checks, basically running acts, I think, and behind the scenes. The assessment is that sort of step-by-step walkthrough that I was talking about, and then ad hoc tools is you can sort of pick and choose which of the tests you want to run. So first, let's do this is just the Domino's head homepage. Let's do the FastPass on it, and let's adjust my windows a little bit so you can see what's going on. Okay, so I found 23 issues, and we expand all, and it gives you more information about color contrast. So you can Accessibility Insights is an amazing tool for learning about accessibility too. It links off to all the source material. This is the actual standard that is being violated, all that kind of stuff. And then if we click on this, it'll show us where the problem actually is on the page. So in this case, it's the legalese at the bottom of the page. The colors here, it's dark gray on light gray, so it's not enough contrast relative to the standards. So it even says the color contrast is 2.7, and they expected more of a 4.5 to 1 contrast. So, and that's actually all of the issues on the homepage are in that class. So they're all just but they're all color contrast problems. So, but you can see as I click through them, it sort of highlights the part of the page where the problem is, which is pretty handy. So the other thing that you can do with the FastPass thing is tab stops. So you turn that on, and then you start tabbing around the page, and it'll show you the order that that tabbing takes you through the page. I don't know if that was the best way to say that, but it's pretty interesting. I don't know why it sometimes skips things, but this is a good way to check whether or not the order of things makes sense. So in this case, it's all pretty linear. There's nothing too surprising here. We'll go through even the legalese. The only thing is, if you wanted to order with DOM, that thing down on the bottom left, you'd have to tab through the entire page before you got to that. And that's maybe not the best experience. But I'm kind of curious about that thing. I haven't checked the accessibility of that guy yet. So I'm just gonna reload, get rid of this. Let's try this order with DOM thing. So talk to DOM. Okay, sure, we'll talk to DOM. Let's see about this page, because this seems like it could be something that is a little tricky to get right. So oh wow, failed instance is 0. It says there's nothing wrong with this page. I'm a little surprised, but this is a newer feature, so maybe it happened post lawsuit and they actually designed it with accessibility in mind or something. Let's at least see what the tabbing does. So it looks like actually, if you look down bottom right, by default, we're focused into that field. So I could actually tease Dom here a little bit. I want to order a pizza. So I was able to just kind of do that. If I tab around, oh, there's a speech thing. I guess, oh, yeah, well, I want to order a pizza. I don't know, did that work? I guess not. Anyway, and then we tab up to the Domino's logo. So I guess that would take us back to the site. So, okay, or that takes us back to the site. Sign in, check out. I don't know. I mean, that seems fine. I mean, all the color contrast is good. I guess there's, we could also try more of the assessment, just because I do want to show this to you. So the assessment, it goes through, there's automated checks, and it tells you what all of them are. So you see it's checking a whole bunch of things, video captions, labels on form elements, color contrast, a bunch of stuff. Keyboard navigation, whether you can focus on different items, landmarks, which is a pretty big deal. So landmarks, a landmark reader have a, okay, so anyway, landmarks are sort of how screen readers organize a page. So headers are a big deal, nav elements, kind of those, like nav, or, so header, main, footer type areas. Those things are all really important to a screen reader for organizing. So anyway, you can see that like I was saying, there are 24 different things. Each of them has, a bunch of information, including sort of like, like you can go find all the source information for all this stuff. So yeah, if you were to go through all 24 of these things really diligently, yeah, your page would be in really good shape. So anyway, that's a little bit about Accessibility Insights. It's a fantastic tool. Highly recommended that you all install it. Okay, one last thing is just some resources. So one thing that I haven't talked about yet, there are a couple of articles in here and then links to some of the tools, but Assistive Labs is something that we had a tech talk a few weeks ago about Assistive Labs, and it's basically a tool that you can log into Assistive Labs, and then it will fire up virtual machines for you that have different screen readers running. So you can test your pages in like NVDA, JAWS, VoiceOver, like whatever, all those systems, just by kind of going into this one place. So it's a super useful tool. Like I said, we had a tech talk on it. Weston Thayer, who used to work at Zapier, but he now is just doing this full time. He built it, he gave the talk, and he has actually given us access to Assistive Labs if we want to use it. So, if you are interested in trying it out, you can DM me and I'll give you the login and information for it. But it's pretty cool. It's a little bit like if you've used Browser Stack you want to test something on like an old Android phone or something. It's similar to that, where you just kind of fire up a VM and can play around with it. So anyway, I see we're kind of over time. So yeah, that's it. I guess curious if people have any questions or anything. What'd you think? Did you learn anything?
Yeah, can you just share the resources with us?
Yeah, I'll post the slides in the team channel.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andrew. That was great. My bootcamp really didn't cover accessibility at all when I went through. So it was really nice. The stat about there's more folks in the States using screen reader than there is the population of Canada was genuinely shocking. I did not know there were that many people that depended on them.
It's probably not just screen readers, but some sort of assistive technology, or they're coming to your website with some sort of disability. So yeah.
All right, great. Well, thanks so much, everybody. So Lauren started a thread in the main Slack channel for conversations on issues this week. I know, Lauren, why you had mentioned that you wanted to discuss the name of the app and possibly adding a logo and just making that a little bit more official. So if you all want to have that conversation right in that thread, we can do that. I'll also have office hours this week, similar to what Lauren had hosted last week, where we can drop in. So yeah, if you have any questions or if you need us, feel free to ping us on Slack. Otherwise, happy to let you go and start working.
Any questions about the week before we drop off? Feeling good? All right. I think that everyone is in really good. I think that the app is in really good shape. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of stuff left to do. Lauren, why? Do you want to say something?
Do we need to make another branch? Are we trying to make a second main styling branch, or what do you guys want to do?
I don't like keeping this one.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Oh, I don't mind keeping this one. We can just merge it into main again. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, have a good week this week, and let us know if there's anything we can do as we progress throughout the week.
Yeah, awesome.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good
Thanks,
Sunday.
Andrew.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks again.
Bye.